What is happening, everybody? It is time for a little bit of an owner's box breakdown ahead of the next round of the playoffs. And what I'm going to be doing here is building out lineups in the contest generator and the Sims tool at Stokastic.com, which you guys want to sign up for. You could use the link below. It is discounted for the rest of the season through the Super Bowl, with there only being a few slates left in the NFL season. And so we'll build lineups here for Owner's Box, the sponsor of today's show. We'll look at the results. We'll go position by position. And if you guys have any questions for me as we go, I'm always looking at the YouTube chat while I do this show. And any questions you guys have, I always answer them here on the show. So if you want to talk about bets you might like for the weekend, or if you want to just talk about other questions, players to start, things along those lines, throw it into the YouTube chat and we can answer those as we go here. But what I'm starting with is building out lineups for the Saturday through Sunday. So the 4-game slate in here. Got those lineups being built here in the contest generator. And if you guys want to sign up for Owner's Box, there's a link for that below as well. The first time you sign up, you do get a deposit bonus of up to $500, which is always something nice to take advantage of here. But let's go, and we've got the lineups built out here. So let's simulate them and then see what ends up popping up. And while I'm running, or before I run the sim, I should say, let's go and look at Owner's Box. And what is the percentage payout to first for these contests? All right, so payouts for this weekend, we have 25% to first. So the default, easy. See, I didn't even have to look at it. I could have just run the sim without searching anything else or pressing anything else at all. Let's see what we've got from the chat. Somebody wants to know favorite defense. Favorite defense. Who cares about defense? So one thing that is nice about Owner's Box is that there are no defenses. You play SuperFlex. But as for the question in the YouTube chat about the best defense for the slate, I got to be honest, especially for small slates, it's not something I've really put a lot of stock into. If I had to play one defense, it would be the San Francisco 49ers. Like, if we're just looking at which defense do I think is most likely to find success, it has to be San Francisco, who arguably has the best defense in the NFL, going up against arguably the weakest offense of any remaining team in the playoffs in the Green Bay Packers, and also a young QB in Jordan Love, who, while he has shown a lot of upside lately, he's still a high variance quarterback, and we've seen him with some downturns as well. And he's been in some primetime spots where he looks like the next all-pro quarterback, and then at other times he looks like he doesn't really belong. So really high variance QB, a lot of upside in the future for Jordan Love, but he's inconsistent at this point in his career, and a very difficult matchup against San Francisco. So as far as favorite defense goes, I'm going to answer the San Francisco 49ers for this weekend. Now, we build these lineups out in Owner's Box, which are just about done simulating. What happened right there is the lineups that I built out, 10,000 in the contest generator, just simulated them 40,000 times in the Sims tool. And that helps me sort my lineups, figure out which of the lineups I built are actually the ones that are expected to be most profitable. And then let's see what is next here. What is the most amount of lineups? Max entry here is 95. So I'm going to favorite my top 95 lineups here. Favorite my top 95. Next question here is, there's no defense on Owner's Box. Do I recommend playing it? Yes. So what I really like about, there's a couple things that I really like about Owner's Box. One thing here is going to be that I like that there is no defense. I like that there's SuperFlex. And then another benefit of it as well is that there's been a good amount of overlay on Owner's Box. As they grow and they try to put out bigger contests, you'll find Owner's Box overlay that doesn't exist on FanDuel and DraftKings. There'll be contests that only fill half the way on Owner's Box, which is always something to take advantage of. So you're getting a different format, SuperFlex. You can play 2 quarterbacks. You're getting potential overlay and then also a deposit bonus. So you sign up and they will match you up to $500. So lots of good ways to help build your bankroll there. As far as the lineups I've built, let's go ahead and start to look at some of the top ones and then some of the player exposures as well. And if you guys want, I could throw in some bets that I like as we go also. I could look at some of our projections for OddShopper over here on my other screen and find some bets if that is of interest to you guys. If not, we could just look at some of the lineups here. But my top projected lineup has a simulated ROI of 336.2%, and it is a triple stack of the Detroit Lions. And then on the other side, we have Patrick Mahomes, although no stacking options with Mahomes. So not something we see all that often. Most of the lineups are going to be 2 stacks here. But we do have at least a strong Lions stack. And it is Jared Goff with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, and Josh Reynolds all in this lineup here. And then follow up any deposit matches or free sims if you sign up. So at the beginning of the year, there was a free sim sign-up offer, but not anymore. But there is the deposit bonus of up to $500. Just have to sign up using the link below, and you will get that through OwnersBox. So that's really all you have to do. Just claim it using that link that we have down there at the bottom. But anyway, so this lineup, we had Jared Cook in a triple stack. Some of the other players filling out the lineup: James Cook, Devin Singletary, Tucker Kraft is in the lineup as well. So we have, as you see here, QB +3. And then there's also the one run back in the lineup. Oh, by the way, we do have Mahomes stacked. I missed that there. Mahomes and Travis Kelce is in the lineup. Didn't see that first. So we have Mahomes with Kelce and then the Lions triple stack on the other side. So fun ways you could correlate lineups and create some extra upside for yourself. And then the other lineup that we have in here, second best projected lineup, there's 3 lineups that are standing out above all the rest. And one thing to note here as well is that Mark Andrews has been ruled out. So we can make some changes in here as well to customize the lineups a little bit, because the projections haven't quite been updated yet for today's news, but they're going to be updated later on tonight. It'll be all set and ready to go for tomorrow. But it is worth noting that right here, I have a lineup with Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson stack. So actually, let's rebuild some lineups. Let's have some fun. I'll show you guys some fun stuff that I like to do with the Sims tool to customize lineups sometimes, just play around with stuff. But let's go back to the contest generator. And I'm going to find Mark Andrews. Okay, Mark Andrews. I'm going to take him out of my player pool. And then I'm going to find Isaiah Likely, who is going to be picking up a lot more ownership now that Mark Andrews has been ruled out. So what I'm doing on this page is I'm boosting the ownership. So what this is, it isn't going to mean that I get to more lineups with Isaiah Likely. What it's going to do is increase his projected ownership. So when I regenerate lineups here, it's going to create a field for me that now takes Mark Andrews out and then boosts Isaiah Likely just so that he's in a larger percentage of the field's lineups. Then what I'm going to do after this is I'm going to manually change the projection of Mark Andrews to 0. And then I'm going to change Isaiah Likely's projection. We'll put him at, let's say, just 9.5 fantasy points. I know that's what he's been projected for in some of the recent games that Mark Andrews has been out. All right, so now here on the projections page, let's find Mark Andrews. Set him to 0 fantasy points because he's out now. We'll go to Isaiah Likely. And let's put him to, let's go to 9.75 on him. Change this in here. Not bad. It would help if I could type. All right, 9.75. All right, so now I'm going to run another sim here. But now the sim is basically going to consider that there is none of Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely as the starting tight end. So just gives a different look at the slate. By the way, follow-up question there was, why do we get to so little Josh Allen? Well, we'll see. We'll see, because I didn't look at the actual exposures of the QBs, but I do know when I was building lineups for DraftKings earlier, I haven't built out lineups for OwnersBox, but in the DraftKings lineups I was building, I wasn't getting to a ton of Josh Allen. Here's why. Josh Allen individually, clearly a lot of upside, right? None of us are going to disagree with that. Josh Allen, tremendous upside. But to give yourself the best odds of winning tournaments possible, you really want your lineups to be highly correlated. And it's really hard to build stacks of the Bills and know who to stack Josh Allen with, because the Bills spread the ball out so much in their offense. And when Josh Allen has big games, it doesn't have to be with his arm. It could be with his feet as well. So you could build lineups where it's like, hey, Josh Allen with, Khalil Shakur or Stephon Diggs, but there's no guarantee that those are going to be pass catchers that benefit. So the easiest path to success to building lineups, in my opinion, for this weekend is taking some of the other quarterbacks like Jared Goff, like Baker Mayfield. We have a better sense of where the targets are going towards. And even for a team like the Baltimore Ravens, who, while Mark Andrews is out, Isaiah Likely is a great value at tight end. I do prefer Ravens stacks to Buffalo Bills stacks, even though there's a lot of rushing upside for Lamar Jackson, because I feel like I have a better feel for who the value is as far as pass catchers go with the Ravens as opposed to the Bills. But now that you see that we made those changes and got to Isaiah Likely more in this pool of lineups, it looks like this is getting us to a lot more Lamar Jackson. Actually, almost all these top lineups here stacked: Baltimore, Detroit, Baltimore, Detroit, Baltimore, Detroit, Baltimore, Tampa Bay. So now it looks like I've gotten myself to a ton of Lamar Jackson, which I think Isaiah Likely is the best overall tight end to get to on the slate here. So let's go ahead and look now at our top simulated lineup and how it's changed. So instead of it being a Lions Chiefs stack, instead, this is a Ravens and Lions stack. It is a double stack and a single stack. So it's Lamar Jackson stacked with Isaiah Likely. And then we have Jared Goff stacked with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams. And I really do like the cheap wide receivers for the Lions. We haven't officially heard word, but my best guess is that Khalif Raymond isn't going to play this weekend. And if that's the case, look at the routes run and the snaps played by pass catchers by the Lions last week. We saw Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, as well as Josh Reynolds, right? So those were the only three wide receivers that really played any significant amount of snaps or ran routes for the Lions. And then even Sam Laporta at tight end, he played, but he wasn't 100%. He seemed compromised by the knee injury that he suffered towards the tail end of the regular season. And as a result, he did catch the one touchdown, but he only had a few targets for the entire game. So I don't think he's going to be a massive part of the Lions game plan just because of that knee injury. So we got really condensed targets for the Lions. If they go off and have a big game, we could feel pretty confident that a big passing game for Jared Goff, it's going to be to those three wide receivers. So that makes that a pretty easy path to success if the Lions go off. But let's go and look at our exposures now. Going to filter by QBs, and we'll see what the QB exposures are. Whoops, position. Let's go to quarterback. I'm having a very bad time typing today. All right, so to the question in chat, yeah, no Josh Allen, not much CJ Stroud. Only 8% of my top lineups have Josh Allen, 2% have CJ Stroud. Where's my quarterback exposure going to? 60% to Lamar Jackson, 52% to Jared Goff. And don't forget, these numbers are going to add up to over 100% because with it being a super flex, the top 95 lineups I favorited, almost all of them are going to have two quarterbacks. So lineup exposure is going to add up to somewhere close to 200% here. So Lamar Jackson, Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, Patrick Mahomes, Brock Purdy, those are all the quarterbacks I have double-digit exposure to. But the biggest stands, Lamar Jackson, 61% of lineups, Jared Goff, 52.6%. And then on the low end, are they getting to any of Jordan Love? I'm pretty surprised Love is projecting for as much ownership as he's getting here. Because if you look at Jordan Love, project for 15% ownership against the San Francisco 49ers. The field's getting to Love a little bit too much in my opinion. So I like that we're coming underweight to the field here on Love. And as for CJ Stroud, just super expensive on OwnersBox. So that's the main reason why the field isn't really getting there. So even though I only have 2% of CJ Stroud, I'm actually not crazy underweight to him. Like I'm more underweight to Jordan Love, more underweight to Brock Purdy. More underweight to Josh Allen, about similarly underweight to Brock Purdy. But the way that I'm really building my lineups, the priorities, Lamar Jackson, Jared Goff, and I don't have an issue with those being the QBs I get to. So nothing that I'd be willing to change. Well, if you guys did want to change something, so like the fella here in the chat who wants to be getting to like CJ Stroud, if you wanted to, you go to CJ Stroud, you give him an ROI boost, and then if you boosted the ROI, that would change your exposures here to CJ Stroud. But I'm not going to change anything for here. So let's go ahead and look at the options that we're getting to with the quarterback. So what are the builds that I'm getting to, right? So when I have Lamar Jackson, what does the stacking breakdown look like? So of the lineups I have with Lamar Jackson, we've got, and keep in mind too, this is overall lineup. So those, 61% or whatever the number was of Lamar Jackson. So it's 28% single stacks, 28% double stacks, 3% triple stacks, which not a whole lot of triple stacking with Lamar Jackson. He doesn't look quite as strong as a triple stack. Whereas somebody like Jared Goff, right? I'm getting to more triple stacks than single stacks, where compared to Lamar Jackson, 28% of lineup single stacks, only 8% Jared Goff, which also makes a whole lot of sense to me logically. If Jared Goff has a big game, it has to come from throwing the football. There's no scenario where Jared Goff rushes for 2 touchdowns and 100 yards, which is a realistic scenario for Lamar Jackson. So Lamar Jackson lineups can be successful when he's only stacked with one of his pass catcher, fairly unlikely for a Jared Goff lineup, which is why the Jared Goff lineups are more double and triple stacks and only a limited amount of the single stacks. Then you guys will see here some of the other QB exposures while I take a quick drink of water here. I've done so many shows today. This is like the 5th show I've done today. And I've got another basketball one I'm doing after this. I love it. Having a lot of fun, but get a little parched, start to lose my voice. So anyway, Jared Goff, Lamar Jackson. We know those are the priorities for me at quarterback. The Baker Mayfield lineup's a little bit more spread out. I'm kind of surprised that I'm not getting to more double stacks of Baker Mayfield. I do like the Baker Mayfield, Chris Godwin, and Mike Evans combination. So I'll be curious to see which of the pass catchers I'm targeting here with Baker Mayfield. And then Brock Purdy, primarily double stacks. It's going to be harder to make triple stacks of Brock Purdy just because of pricing constrictions. And then, as far as the QBs go, nothing else here that's really worth talking too much about. And by the way, guys, don't forget, if you have any questions at all, throw those into the chat and we could answer those as we go. But let's look at, take away the stacks. Let's look at running backs now. If we go and look at running backs here, no real shocking surprise. And one of the reasons, too, that I'm getting underweight to Brock Purdy is because where I'm getting more of my exposure to the 49ers is through Christian McCaffrey. So if McCaffrey is going to be in nearly 60% of my lineups as my most rostered running back, still getting a lot of exposure to the 49ers. It's just coming through the ground game more so than the passing game. So still getting exposures here to McCaffrey and the 49ers, just different than what some of the field is doing. And a question for my favorite low-owned running back of the week. Interesting one. So 10% is a really difficult mark just because there are so few running backs on a 4-game slate. They're going to be projected for sub 10% ownership. Let's see, though. Who's the lowest owned running back that I'm getting to? And by the way, the pool ownership, that's the mark here of what the expected ownership is. Let's see. Who could I really make a case for? So in here, we've got Chase Edmonds. By the way, I think Chase Edmonds is probably fairly likely to sit this week. He actually hasn't been practicing. So either sit or be restricted in some kind of way. If that's the case, Rachaad White's going to benefit a ton. Rachaad White was already playing like 70% of snaps. He was involved in the passing game as well as the run game. If Chase Edmonds doesn't play, which is kind of what appears the trend to be, then Rachaad White is going to be somebody who goes from like 20% of my lives, probably like 35 or 40%. But low-owned running back, if I had to pick somebody, I guess I'd go to David Montgomery here, right? I mean, the only ones that are projected for sub 10% ownership, unless we're looking at like goofy guys like Dalvin Cook, I don't have interest in playing Dalvin Cook. I'll go David Montgomery just for touchdown equity. He's only showing up in 3.2% of my lineups. But if I had to play a super contrarian running back, I'll go to Montgomery. He's the only guy who I think we could expect to get a serviceable workload that is sub 10% owned. I understand where your question's coming from, but it's just not, it's not really an ownership spot where I'm finding any kind of real guys that I want to get to in any kind of meaningful way. Underweight to Aaron Jones makes sense. I'm underweight to the entire Green Bay Packers offense as a whole going up against the 49ers. And then also, there's some positive correlation there. If I'm playing a lot of Christian McCaffrey and we're going to expect a game script where the 49ers are leading, that's going to not really create a lot of opportunities for Green Bay run back options. James Cook, same sort of deal. Not getting to a lot of exposure to Josh Allen. So what's the way that the Bills could score points, but it doesn't come through Josh Allen in the passing game? James Cook. So James Cook, I think, is really good leverage off of Josh Allen this week. You get overweight to James Cook, easy to justify being underweight to Josh Allen. And then Devin Singletary, same sort of deal. Not getting to a lot of CJ Stroud, but I am getting to the running game here with Devin Singletary. As for other running backs, Justice Hill, I know he showed up in 13% of my lineups. I'm not super high on him, though, or the Ravens running game as a whole, because when we're looking at what we have here with the Ravens, and the fact that Dalvin Cook is just randomly added to this situation and who knows what kind of role he might play. The problem here with the Ravens running backs is you've got Lamar Jackson could run for touchdowns. Justice Hill can. Gus Edwards can. You just don't know who's going to touch the ball once they get down to the 1 yard line. So it's a situation I personally don't want a whole lot of exposure to. And as far as Pacheco goes, just expensive. So don't really end up with a lot of him in lineups. He is, let's see, the price tag on Isaiah Pacheco. Pacheco is the most expensive running back that plays on Saturday at $6,800. And then as for overall, so the only running back more expensive on OwnersBox this weekend than Pacheco is Christian McCaffrey at $8K. And there isn't that big of a salary gap between Pacheco and Christian McCaffrey. I would much prefer to just play McCaffrey over Pacheco, considering the price points of the two of them. It's easy to find the $1,200 to get to McCaffrey instead of Pacheco. So I'd either want to go all the way up to McCaffrey or save a little bit more money and get to guys like Rashad White or James Cook, for instance. Let's look at the wide receivers next, and then I'll look at the tight ends, and then we'll be done here. So if you guys haven't done yet, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Don't forget, any questions or comments for myself, throw those into the YouTube chat. Wide receiver exposures, and look, Detroit Lions, talked about it before. Condensed routes being run, as well as condensed targets. I do not think Khalif Raymond is going to play. I do not think Sam Laporta is 100%. If that is the case, Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Josh Reynolds are going to get all of the targets and workload that they could handle. None of them are crazy priced. Amon-Ra St. Brown, sure, he's a little bit expensive at the high end of wide receiver, but it's nothing insanely crazy. And Josh Reynolds and Jameson Williams are both fairly cheap. So we don't have them projected for crazy fantasy points. 9.9 for Reynolds, 8.39 for Jameson Williams. And that still got me to 51.6% of my top lineups in the Sims of Jameson Williams, 38.9% to Josh Reynolds. This is a team that I love getting to for salary savings this week, especially because there isn't a ton of value on the slate. We have to be cost conscious. And if we're trying to find the cheap players with the most upside, it's Isaiah Likely now that Mark Andrews is out, or it's some of these cheap wide receivers from the Lions who have big play potential. Josh Reynolds had a big game last week and was fairly low owned on every site. And then Jameson Williams has home run upside. He's somebody who could take a screen 50 yards for a touchdown on any given day. I like him for the upside as well. Getting actually to some John Mechie in lineups. Going to have to check to make sure that Robert Woods is out, because that is going to definitely determine how much of Mechie that I end up liking this weekend. As far as the other wide receivers, so my Tampa Bay stacks do have more of Chris Godwin than Mike Evans, and then Mecole Hardman, as well as Zay Flowers. A couple of other wide receivers not projected for much ownership showing up in lineups. So what is super popular wide receiver? The Detroit Lions guys are. What else? Yeah, there's not that much ownership going to the wide receivers. Not that much ownership going to the wide receivers. Looks like we got more ownership condensed on the tight ends probably, as well as some of those running backs we're looking at before. So let's look at the tight ends. And Isaiah Likely, even with me boosting them. So there are going to be some changes as we get more updates coming in here, because ultimately Isaiah Likely is going to be more popular than just the 3% projected ownership that I got by boosting him in here. But Isaiah Likely, clearly the top tight end option on the slate here on OwnersBox. He is in 3/4 of my lineups. Top value play on the slate, all things being considered. But when the ownership does come up, because it's not actually only going to be this low, it is going to lower the exposure that I get to Isaiah Likely a little bit. But still, top tight end option. And then other tight ends I'm getting to a good amount of Travis Kelce. So that's the exposure I'm getting to the Chiefs offense. I'm about even with the field on Mahomes, but the stacking option I'm getting with them, it's Travis Kelce more so than Rashee Rice. So not getting too much Rice, not getting too much Pacheco, but do have 23% of Travis Kelce. And then where was Mahomes? See, Mahomes was in what, like 14% of lineups was the number? Yeah, 14.7. So about even with the field here on the core of the Chiefs passing game in Mahomes and Travis Kelce. Tucker Kraft showing up in lineups, Cade Otton as well, and then George Kittle, but no real crazy stands at tight end, which will happen outside of Isaiah Likely showing up in a bunch of lineups. And then nothing else looks all that crazy to me. I think no matter what site you guys are playing on, whether it's OwnersBox, DraftKings, or FanDuel, this is a really good slate to play lineups with two tight ends. There are very few slates where we've this loaded of tight end options. So we got Isaiah Likely as a great value option with Mark Andrews out. We have Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Dalton Schultz, Dalton Kincaid. So two Daltons to go to at the tight end spot. These are most of the top fantasy tight ends that we had in the league this year. And with there being a lack of value at the wide receiver spots, as well as most of the quarterbacks being fairly pricey this weekend, I like saving salary at tight end or just playing a lot of these tight ends together, because a lot of the tight ends on the slate, they have as much upside as any of the wide receivers when you're considering guys like George Kittle and Travis Kelce. So don't be afraid to play double tight end lineups. I know a lot of people typically don't like to do it. This slate, it's one that is particularly good for that, in my opinion, though. So that's going to do it for me. I'm going to be back on the channel about an hour to break down the NBA slate tonight. So hope to see you guys there. If you haven't done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Good luck and enjoy all the games this weekend, and hope to see you guys again here in an hour.